Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining the PENNANT presentation, where we will take you through the Auxilium suite and its product roadmap. Throughout the presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab, which is located on the right-hand corner of your screen. This presentation is focused on the Auxilium suite, so we will only be focusing on the Q&A for the product-related questions. There will be other presentations where broader commercial and financial questions might be more relevant. And finally, we would like to remind you that today's presentation is being recorded. I will now hand you over to Philip Walker, Chief Executive, and James St. John, Chief Product Officer. Phil.
Thanks, Tom, and welcome everyone. My name, as Tom introduced me, is Phil Walker. I'm the Group CEO of PENNANT. I'd like to welcome any existing investors as well as any potential new investors to this session, which is focused on our software Auxilium. I hope you find this informative. We've not done this before, so look forward to sharing with you the exciting product that is Auxilium. Today, I'm joined by James St. George. James is our CPO based out of Ottawa in Canada. So morning, James.
Morning, everyone.
James joined PENNANT in 2021, initially as a product manager, but progressed to become our CPO in February last year. So we look forward to hearing from James, and he's the visionary behind this suite. So he's looking forward to taking your questions. So we do look forward to your questions, and also any feedback on the session will be welcome. So without further ado, let's press on with the presentation. As I've mentioned in previous sessions, PENNANT has made a strategic shift towards a highly scalable software and technical services model. As part of that strategy, this has included significant investment in our integrated software suite, Auxilium, which you're going to hear about today. So today's presentation really is split into two segments. Segment one, I'll take the lead, and it's really a quick overview and abridged version of PENNANT, including a little bit about what is integrated product support, which is quite important in terms of the context of the software. And then the main event, James will take you through the software product in terms of what is Auxilium, is it worth the investment, how does Auxilium support operational readiness, and what are the benefits of the product. So let's get into section one. What do we do? Everything we do at PENNANT is focused on what we call maximizing operational efficiency. What does that mean? Why does it matter? So our software, our services, our training solutions are designed to ensure that systems, and that could be assets, that could be people, are available when they're needed, where they're needed, and most importantly, that they work. Why does that matter? Well, you only need to watch the news to realize the world's changed. Global uncertainty, war in Eastern Europe, concerns in Asia Pacific. The problem we are addressing for our customers is, how do I improve my availability, my readiness, which in today's world really means mission capability. How do I ensure systems supported efficiently and effectively so that available when they're needed? I recently heard a quote which I quite liked, which was, "You have to stay in the fight to be in the fight." We've heard scare stories from that the UK stockpiles hold enough munitions for 8 days. And we all witnessed the road to Kiev with the Russian vehicles breaking down with the wrong tires. Our tools help support this process. They enable our customers to make data-driven decisions based on underlying engineering data and other sources, which is critical when you're trying to maximize operational efficiency and ensure readiness. Critically, the software complies with the global standards. This is really important in the highly regulated sectors we operate in, like defense, rail, and aerospace. And the tools help our customers understand and manage their cost of ownership, examining that trade-off of cost versus availability, helping optimize the support solution to improve their uptime. So at PENNANT, our aspiration really is for Auxilium to become that system support enterprise solution of choice. So who do we support? So here's a plethora of logos of customers and clients that we work with. So you could break our customers into a number of categories. At the top level, we work with defense departments like the Canadian Defense, Australian Defense. We also work with defense primes, defense, second tier, third tier, civilian airlines, civilian aircraft manufacturers, rail ship equipment manufacturers, and we're very proud of our customer base. The challenge for us, as I've mentioned before, is that we're very much perceived as a project-based tool. With the progression into the integrated solution, which you're going to hear more about, we're now driving this towards an enterprise solution with huge cross-selling opportunities in our base. And that's the exciting thing for us. It's not necessarily about winning new customers, it's about expanding what we've got. How do we operate? Again, I will cover this quickly. In previous presentations, we've gone through this in a lot more detail. On the right-hand side is our training systems business. This segment is our heritage, the production of hardware and software training solutions to help the operation and maintenance of complex assets. As outlined in previous meetings, our focus now has shifted towards servicing this installed base through modifications, retrofits, and upgrades, but it's still an important part of the group. The middle section, technical services, is our largest by absolute revenue. It really comprises a team of experts, consultants, trainers, development services, usually in the form of repeatable contracts, annual contracts, really in defense, aerospace, and rail. The way you would describe this, that these contracts are typically derivatives of the software or the training solutions. But today we're really here to talk about the segment on the left, the software segment, the third segment. This segment comprises of 3 core applications under the product suite name of Auxilium. I'll shortly hand over to James, who will explain this in a lot more detail. But just to reiterate, whilst Auxilium as a name is new, the 3 core applications that make up the Auxilium suite are proven, established, and widely used. But I'll let James explain what we've achieved and why and what that means. Final slide for me before I hand over to James is I thought it would be useful just to explain what is integrated product support. As some of you will know, my background is financial services. I'm not an engineer. I come from banking and accountancy. So this is the way I understand product support. It says it there on the slide. It's a strategy to ensure systems, complex systems, mission critical assets are supported throughout their life cycle. The types of customers or industries are clearly those that have large equipment, complex equipment, lots of systems of parts, heavy maintenance cycle, long life, required to work to highly regulated specifications. And obviously sectors that meet these criteria include things like defense, as we're well placed, space, commercial aviation, rail, shipping. Auxilium supports this process right from the design phase through development, operation, maintenance, right through to disposal, ensuring that the user, the operator, can achieve optimal operational readiness and ensure their mission capability is achieved. So I'm going to hand it for James now, and he's going to take you through Auxilium in a lot more detail.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Phil. So for Auxilium, as Phil said, our core products have been around in market for over 20 years each. And within the last 5 years, we have initiated an effort to consolidate them all together in one software suite using a common backend database so that you could reuse any data that's shared between the different applications. That would be things such as your part information, your maintenance and operating tasks. That really avoids the duplication of effort across these different teams that would use the various products. So a technical author would be able to access the same information as an analyst or a modeler. So Gen S is the core supportability engineering analysis tool. It allows you to go through an iterative approach to find out what's your best support solution. Analyzer will model that and quantify it to make the best decisions on who should do the repair, what the life cycle cost is going to be, what spares you should go out and buy, where you should locate them, and then also the ability to perform a simulation of that as well. So you can actually verify and validate even early on in the design stage to come up with that optimized support solution. R4I is all to do with S1000D. So rather than just have a printed publication such as in paper, you could have an interactive electronic technical manual where you can, it's more digital. It can support different formats such as on tablets, VR headsets, and so forth, that allow the technician at the end of the day to leverage just the information that they need to carry out the task at hand. And the big thing, I think a big differentiator for us in the marketplace is that we are the only commercial offering of those three capabilities together. Any other competitor would need to join up with 2 or more companies to provide this offering. So we are the only ones that offer this under one umbrella. For the Auxilium proposition, some of the big things that we've changed is our licensing model. So we've moved away from a heavy upfront perpetual type model to more of a subscription based, making it affordable, but also increasing our recurring revenue. The pricing is based on the number of users. We typically do a floating license based, so it's a seat based licensing scheme. Where organizations can easily adjust and scale to their needs for the project, because that's typically what we'll see on large defense type projects, where they might start out with a few number of licenses at the start, ramp up, and then slowly dwindle down. But if they get the in-service support contract, they might ramp up again in terms of the licenses. So it really scales to the need for the project phase. Worth the investment. Phil touched on this earlier, but it's really that everybody's focused on that large upfront acquisition cost for an item, whether it's a new ship, a tank, an aircraft. But what's really hidden and what's out of sight is all of those costs that are related to the operation support phase of the life cycle of the product. And that is substantially more than that initial upfront cost. So what you want to do early on in that design during that acquisition is whatever you can to reduce those costs down the road. And that's what our tool set enables. So our tool set will allow the early design through iteration to coordinate the different disciplines and ultimately try to make a design that's more supportable, so that you can reduce those costs that you see there underneath the water surface. That would be making the design more supportable in terms of easier to maintain, more supportable in terms of more reliable, and also making sure that you're buying the right parts, the right quantity of parts, and you're locating them in the right location, as well as anything to do with maintenance, an optimized, efficient maintenance plan that has the right tasks being performed at the right level with the right technicians. Here's a few industry statistics in terms of some of the advantages you can have by going through and using software tools to do integrated product support. So there's maintenance downtime reduction, life cycle cost savings, training time reduction, spares optimization. So what we're really talking about here is two things. We're talking about saving money over the life cycle of the equipment, and we're talking about reducing downtime. So when we think about a product, whether it's a tank, a ship, an aircraft, what we're really talking about is an operational capability for the end customer. And what that needs is to be properly supported in order to execute and deliver its missions. So the three things that we look at from a support aspect is service, prevention, and repair, which I'll go into in more detail in the following slides. From a service perspective, these can be thought of as tasks that you do before using a particular system or product. That would be things like doing pre-flight checks, making sure that air pressure in tires is topped up, doing any kind of visual inspections for debris and obstructions, but also post-usage tasks as well. So that could be anything such as engine oil changes. It could be servicing replenishing lubricants, and it could also include things such as desalination if the equipment had come into contact with salty water environments, for instance. So that's really the core of the services. And then what we're going to look at is different areas where the software has a direct impact on that, a direct effect. One of the first ones, and I think it's one of the most important ones, is the health and safety. These maintenance tasks are being performed in often hazardous environments, and they need to ensure that there is the proper procedures in place. They have the right notifications in terms of dangerous cautions, warnings, notes, so that they're performing and executing on the maintenance tasks in a safe and efficient way. That's what our tool does, is it goes through, it performs an analysis process to make sure that they have the right procedures, they have all the dangerous cautions, warnings, notes, they have their safety equipment identified for what they need to wear, things such as lifting requirements as well, whether one person, two people can do it. All of that is identified in a structured database in our tools so that we can provide an authoritative source for where procedures come from to execute properly on this maintenance. Materials management, that's another big one. So there's a few things here. There's the hazardous materials is one of the first things that come to mind. Making sure that you're complying with other regulations for hazardous materials, whether it's the storage, the transportation, the labeling, that is captured within our system. Our system will also be able to quantify the amount of hazardous materials that is present within the product and system. I think that's a very forward-looking aspect of our tool, because what makes something a certain degree of hazardous for personnel is usually the quantity. So what the quantity is today might not be what the quantity is in 10 years. And you see that all the time with things like cadmium and so forth, where today the threshold is much higher than maybe in the future because the research comes out that identifies the quantities need to be reduced in terms of what people can be exposed to. So ours is keeping track of that through the life cycle, and the systems that we're talking about are going to be around for decades. So it's a long time to keep track of all this data and information, and that's really the core of our system and what it does. It also keeps track of the shelf life, any kind of labeling requirements, and special considerations to make sure you're compliant with those hazardous list authorities, and you're properly managing that. Technical documentation. So here's a few examples of different technical documentation that would be common on a servicing task. The thing I really want to highlight on this is it's not just the tasks to do the servicing themselves, but it's also the things that what if it doesn't go right. So the emergency procedures. What happens when you spill some fuel? What happens when something catches on fire? What are the procedures that you go through and do to get things back to normal? The next area we'll talk about is the prevention. So rather than letting things go and run to failure, where can we prevent it, where it makes sense from an economic perspective, where it makes sense from a safety perspective or an operational perspective. And there's a whole set of analysis in our tool that allow you to do that. Reliability centered maintenance is one of the big ones, where you can look at the different ways something fails and then put in mitigation strategies that are optimized from a cost and an efficiency perspective, along with safety and environmental considerations. So one of the big ones here is personnel qualifications. This is certification requirements. This is skills. This is knowledge. This is physical and mental attributes. So making sure that the technicians that are set to perform these tasks have the right qualifications to efficiently and safely execute on the maintenance. Calibration and measurement. So what are we measuring? What needs to be calibrated? How often it needs to be calibrated? Can we optimize those intervals over the life cycle of the equipment so that we're not doing it too often? We're doing it just at the right time that it needs to be. big savings there. Also, what are we collecting? What is the sensitivity of what we're measuring? And making sure that we're doing all that at the right interval so that the equipment is performing and operating safely and efficiently, as well as being able to provide and collect all that information so we can do further analytics to identify if we need to change those intervals, to identify if there's any kind of health issues with the systems and equipment. Training requirements, that's a big one. So you have a new product coming in, very complex piece of equipment, like a new aircraft, a new ship. What does your current staff, what does your current workforce need to know how to do on that new system, on that new product? And that's where this really shines, is you can have a list of all the tasks that need to be performed from both an operation and a maintenance perspective, and connect that back to your current workforce skills to understand if there's any new or modifications to the skills of your workforce that need to occur. So that could initiate hiring process. It could initiate big training processes for the current workforce. So this is a way of substantiating that, properly identifying the different jobs and duties that your personnel needs to undertake, and then going out and to market or within house and making sure that you have the right skills in place for the new system. Supply chain. So big part of that, supply chain issues seem to be one of the top three of any organization. What does our system do? Our system helps you understand what a healthy pipeline should look like. So we take into account the different reliability data for the systems and product, and we're able to use that information to understand how many you should have on stock based on a healthy pipeline. So long lead time items are considered and so forth. The big thing is you don't want to have a failure, a critical failure, especially of a product or system, and not have a spare on hand. So that's a big part of our system, is making sure that you have an idea of what you need to go out and buy and how many you need to go and buy and where you should put them. Field feedback data. So as we move from a design phase into an in-service phase, what we want to do with field feedback data is we want to collect it and then analyze. We have a current baseline of what we're expecting a system, a support solution to perform at. Now we want to measure it and compare the delta between what we expect, what we're measuring, and then see where the issues are so that we can rectify those. The third area for supporting big complex capability is the repair. So when things do fail, how do you fix them? First off, you need to understand, rough order. Well, how many people do I need to know? How many people do I need to have in order to properly carry out all these tasks? Both preventative. Preventative is easy because you can say, well, I have this many tasks, they're scheduled this frequently, it's predictable. Whereas for corrective, when you're repairing something, you have to know how to do that. So you have to take reliability data into account and then say, well, we're expecting to do these repair tasks this often, and that equates to having this many people on hand to perform and carry out those activities. So it's a bit of the unknown when you get into failures because it follows typically a random distribution. Sometimes there's wearouts, but our software will give you an indication for how much time per year you're going to need for different skill specialties. So you're going to need this many mechanics, this many electricians, just to carry out on schedule tasks such as repair. The supply chain, again, big time is understanding the core metrics in terms of lead times, in terms of holdings, where they are, how many you need. That's the big thing for what our software provides. Is it's that initial fill of the pipeline, and that's something that's not present in big ERP systems. So typically, how an ERP system works is it has a certain inventory that gets put in it at the start, and then it'll go through and it'll optimize that over the in-service phase. Whereas our system is more analytical than that. It'll go from basically a blank sheet of paper, and it will give you that initial flow items and so forth, but it'll also give you, based on the analysis and data, that expected baseline of how your pipeline should be performing. Tools and support equipment, especially for large, complex products and systems. They themselves can be large and complex products and systems. Definitely a big cost driver for defense departments. So they themselves need to have a proper plan put in place for how to maintain them, how to look after them, how to support them, how to reuse them for different products as well, where you can. And ultimately, you need to know that you need them. So that's what our software provides in terms of all of that knowledge, all that information to go out and make these types of purchases. Also, everything that goes around it, whether people need to be trained on it, where you should locate it for your best results to be most efficient and reduce costs. And then facilities and infrastructure, often something that's overlooked, but when you're bringing in that new system, that new product, you have a current baseline of facilities, so warehouses, repair facilities, all of that. Is there any new ones you need? Do you need to modify your current ones in order to properly carry out a particular task? That is also what our software provides. So it gives you an indication of what kind of new or modifications to facilities you need in order to properly support the capability. S1000D is the predominant technical publication specification. So it relies on a common source database in order to create tailored publications for each configuration and breakdown. So what that means is you're getting the right document for the right product and system, so that you can rest assured that your procedures are proper to the asset that you're working on. Engineering for sustainment. So since these product systems are going to be in service for decades, typically, the sustainment phase is going to be large, and there's going to be all kinds of issues, whether it's obsolescence, whether it's degradation of performance that you need to go through and do engineering changes on to make sure that you sustain your current capability. Big things like this would be mid-life refits, for instance, on big systems. And what our software does is it takes you through that process and looks for opportunities to improve the overall support characteristics, whether that's adding things in for training considerations, new and emerging technologies, looking at it from labeling, connectors for ease of removal. There's a lot of considerations that our software will take the analysts through to make sure they're covering their bases on making a more supportable design. So in order to maximize your operational capability, you really need to design your support solution. It's not something that can be an afterthought. It needs to be something that's early on in the design and then lives with the design so that you continuously improve. You look for areas where you can reduce your costs. You look for areas where you can improve the coordination amongst the different disciplines that need to support this. And then the big thing is if you follow compliant data standard for product support, then you're really setting yourself up for success because you're going to be able to interoperate with all these other digital systems that are required for supporting assets such as ERP systems, such as PLMs. So our software supporting these data standards allows us to integrate into these different organizations and their tools so that they can optimize their capability through a proper product support solution. Here's a few screenshots. We have about 4 that I'll kind of run through, just high level. So in the top left, one of our biggest things is the ability to take different data standards and bring them into our software and also support them on the output. So that's a unique feature to us. Most softwares are designed around one data standard, for instance. So you're only ever working in the one, where ours is able to be cross-compatible, be agnostic when you're working in it, but also be fully compliant to those data standards on the exchange. And I think that's a very unique advantage, especially for our customers that have to deliver this data to different customers and different data standards. Now they only have to manage it in the one place and then send it out the door in the different formats that are required for that end customer. On the right, a very nice graphical way of managing your breakdowns, your equipment breakdown structures, what model they belong to, nice, easy drag and drop mouse type functionality, which is pretty big in our industry, where a lot of the older softwares are more like a gray screen fixed field that you got to use a lot of buttons to move one thing around. The bottom left is an example graph for looking at the cost over the life cycle of a particular piece of equipment. So you can see it predicted year over year. And not just that, but you can also get an indication for that overall life cycle cost. What is your confidence in that? So when you say it's going to cost $3 billion over the life, how confident are you? In the 60% confidence interval or greater? Our software will be able to provide that confidence interval to go along with those numbers. And then finally, the bottom right is basically we have a lot of data, a lot of capability in our system, but we want to provide that for each organization. So what have we done? We've provided a dashboard designer tool where any of our customers can leverage the data to meet their business needs. And I think that's a tremendously powerful tool. They can use their analysts, use their knowledge, use their business information to really pull together a complete picture for how they want to support the asset, how they want to support the product. And it's a very powerful tool that's easy to use, a lot of drag and drop to get dashboards that provide the live data out of our system to meet their particular queries and business needs. And on that, I'll hand it back to Phil to conclude the presentation.
Thanks, James. So just to bring this all together, I guess, in my simple mind, why Auxilium? I think the 4 takeaways for me from left to right are pretty obvious. Number one, in the current world we operate, it's all about improving mission capability. Critical. If things need to happen, be deployed, we need to ensure the support solution is effective and efficient. That leads on nicely to readiness and reliability. It's no good, in my quote at the start, it's no good getting into the fight if you can't stay in the fight. Ensuring reliability and readiness is absolutely critical. And we all know, if you look onto the third box, that budgets are tight. So how do you maximize availability based on the money you've got to spend? We haven't got a bottomless pit of funds. So you want to minimize your downtime, maximize your uptime, and ensure that those ownership costs achieve the best outcome. And all of this is wrapped under the umbrella of quality compliance. The world we operate in is highly regulated, safety critical, and you've got to ensure you meet those standards and specifications. And this tool set allows that to happen. So I'll bring that to a close, Tom. And if we want to move on to questions, James and I happy to take some questions.
Yeah, super. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, James. Now, if we could move on to the questions, we had a number of questions submitted ahead of the presentation, but please do continue to submit your questions via the Q&A tab. If we could start with, who are the competitors for Auxilium?
I'll start with that, Tom, and then I'll let James chip in. So the competitors for Auxilium, we talk about the 3 core applications. And James talked about the fact that we're the only vendor that has the whole capability. So we see competition in each of the 3 applications. If you were to take the configuration Gen S application, then our main competitors in that space would be Raytheon with their Eagle product, or someone like ISS Corp with Slickwave. However, in the analyzer space, which is the analysis module, both those entities don't have an analysis tool, so they bought into third-party applications and different tool sets to achieve that capability. On the publication side, on the RFI side, there's a whole raft of competition from small players to large players. But again, we would see someone like Raytheon in that space and others. So across the whole globe, probably our core competitor is probably Raytheon Eagle. And the other competitor is Microsoft Excel. So our biggest threat, or if you're our biggest competitor is Microsoft Excel, but as these standards become more prevalent and the specifications come into practice, without boring people, there's a new NATO standard being launched on data. Excel will not meet that data standard, so there's increasing need for this data to be managed in a way that complies with the standards. James, do you have anything to add on that competitive landscape?
No, I think that addresses it very well.
Great, super. Brett asks, could you share some insights on the different types of customers expressing interest in Auxilium and provide an indication of the potential revenue opportunities a large client may represent?
Yeah, I'll take that one again, Tom. So in terms of opportunities for Auxilium and types of clients, at the moment, we're seeing it range from defence organisations. So we're currently in negotiations demos with 2 large Western European defence organisations. Predominantly, it tends to be tier 1 or what I call tier 2, tier 3 primes, defence primes. So a tier 1 prime would be someone like a Rheinmetall or a Lockheed Martin. And then through their supply chains is normally like a tier 2, tier 3 provider. In terms of value for an enterprise solution for an OEM globally, you're looking at least 7 figures, multiple 7 figures on a subscription model. For a tier 2, tier 3 supply, you're probably looking at a £250,000 to £500,000 for a enterprise solution, and then you go right down to the small one-man band. So it ranges, but at the enterprise level, you're looking at 7 figures, big 7-figure contracts for hundreds of users across the globe.
Great, super. Could you give examples of who you have saved money? Well, sorry, where you have saved money for clients, and how much do you typically save them?
Right, I'll have a go at this first, James, and you've probably summarized. So what I'm going to do, Tom, is I probably can't give you names because of confidentiality, but I'll give you an example of a recent program or case study that I wish I could share publicly. So this hopefully will give people a flavour of the impact of doing this properly. So there's been a recent case study around an armoured vehicle program where they were looking at supportability armoured vehicle. They had a real challenge. Their data sets, their records, etc., were not unified. They were all over the place. So, and the way they maintained it was all fragmented. So they looked to build a what we call logistical support analysis record (LSAR) solution, with that integrated into a planning tool. So effectively, taking something like our GenS and analyzer and standardizing the data, and then producing the outputs and modeling it. The output from that case study or that piece of work is in the region of lowering the life cycle cost by $12 million for that vehicle platform. So $12 million US dollars, but also increasing the uptime rate by about 20% on availability. So you're talking about saving multiple millions of dollars and improving availability by 10, 20, 30%. If you go back to those industry stats that James shared, which are more than marginal gains.
Yeah, impressive indeed. Yeah. Does Auxilium's integrated database architecture enhance the likelihood of IPS integration with military simulation tools or digital twins?
James, do you want to take that one?
Yes, it does. So how we've structured our technology, especially with modern APIs, allows us to integrate, interface with these other tools, letting them pull out better data information to model those scenarios. We'll note as well as our analyzer tool very much does a digital shadow type capability where you can do what if and trade-off analysis as well. So that you're basically able to do a digital twin of your support solution to look at different scenarios where you can make improvements and optimizations. But yes, that is definitely the intent, and our solutions being used by a number of organizations in their integrated data environment.
Okay, super. Slightly technical question here, but what strategies does Pennant employ to address unsupported data standards, and how does the company prioritize the integration of these standards based on customer feedback and market demands? How does key data standards coverage of Auxilium compare to competitors?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because there's actually a lot of our customers that use data standards that have been canceled and are no longer supported. So we support those in our product. We are supporting the exact same data standards that our legacy product Omega PS supported. So we're given a good range all the way back into the 1990s for data standards that we support, and they're still used today. They're still called up in contracts today. So we leverage both legacy and modern. And I think a real key differentiator for our solution is taking those old data systems, bringing it into a modern software technology. And now you're able to support both the original data standards as well as the new and emerging ones. So that's, I think, a core thing about our conversion technology is we're able to support old and new data standards, so that our customers aren't locked into an older data standard. They can bring it into a modern tool. They can work efficiently now, and they can meet their contract requirements to that old data standard. Plus, they have the opportunity to move that into new ones and leverage additional capabilities, such as things that might not have been considered in those older ones, like hazardous materials, for instance, or digital files, being able to add in images, pictures, videos, that kind of thing, to enrich the data set that they had for decades.
And James, how would you compare our coverage of standards versus competitors?
I think we're a top. We're probably the top ones, I would say, in terms of what we cover. We were the first ones that I'm aware of that offered coverage for the GS standard 0007C, way ahead of the competition. It was a driving factor for us being selected by Siemens.
So James, just because that's the US data standard.
That's right. Yeah.
And I would point out, Tom, that James actually sits on the working groups that actually works on the standards as well. So we get visibility of new standards come down the line. I think he works with both NATO and US and Canada and across all those standard groups to provide input and get visibility of where the standards are going. So we've got good representation on those working groups.
Great, super, thank you. Andrew asks, how do you ensure original correct data input and data integrity to prevent garbage in, garbage out?
Yeah, so I love the question, because a tool's only as good as its ingredients, kind of thing. So for that, there are a couple things that have really come to light, especially when we integrate with other systems. So the data standards that we're supporting are very stringent. Which means that there's an extra level of care that needs to be considered when putting it in. There's an extra level of data validation by an independent committee that's putting together the business rules that this needs to conform to. And I think that really adds a lot of quality compared to what I've seen in some other MRO tools, for instance, where you could have a date in a date field that's not even a date. So our system would never allow that to happen. It has a structure to it that's a standard that you need to conform to be interoperable, and that takes care of a lot of it from a validation perspective. Then you get into the verification aspect. So okay, the piece of data, it conforms to what it should in the box, but is that number any good? And that's when you get into different capabilities like reports, like dashboards, to see, are my results making sense? When that task says that it's supposed to be 5 hours, is that reasonable? And I think that second part of the verification actually comes from that field feedback data, that in service. So you have a task that we're saying is supposed to take 5 hours, and the task is coming back as 2 hours or as 10 hours. That's where you start looking at that delta and investigating to see where's the gap between those two. What is the cause of that? Is it a training issue? Is it not having the right resources available? And that allows you to revalidate your data, so to speak, so that you can improve it as a continuous improvement initiative.
But James, you made it at the start, that data validation piece on entry is critical because the system won't allow the bad data in the first place. So once you've got the data into the system, you could be confident the data is valid. That's a really important piece. we're aware of other tools that don't do that.
Yeah, great, super, thank you. Andrew asks, how are your relationships with some of the large UK defence companies, and do you see opportunities for developing close relationships there?
Yeah, so we have long established great relationships with UK defence companies like BAE Systems. We support General Dynamics on the Ajax program, which hasn't been a roaring success for General Dynamics. We work with Boeing UK. We work with Leonardo on the Wildcat. So on the training side of the business, which really is our credibility and heritage, we've got long-standing relationships supporting them on training. I think the challenge for us is that we need to leverage those into the software space. The software business is much more focused in North America and the Asia Pacific region, but geopolitical climate as such, Western Europe and the UK has really woken up to the need to focus on these areas. And the real shift for us, particularly in the last 6 months, is the amount of attention we're getting from Western European companies in Czech Republic, in Poland, in Germany, who really need to spend money in this area to make sure that they're mission ready. But no, we've got very good relationships. It's about leveraging those relationships, Tom, to exploit the software into these organisations, and we're doing that.
Super, thank you. Very topical. How are you utilising AI in the business?
Well, I'm definitely going to bow down to you on this one, James.
Yeah, I'll take that one. So we've recently written an AI policy for our company, which governs how we're using it. So in terms of both a development perspective, where it can support, where it can't support our development coding, and as well as customer-facing tools such as support agents is another area. AI within a customer-facing environment, it's a question I always ask customers is where the maturity of their organization is with AI. Most of them haven't really gotten to that stage yet, but our tools are built for, but not with AI. So what that means is in the background, we have the option of enabling AI functionality, connecting it in to the wherever they're going to host their AI within their business, and using things like smart fill-in, translation, proofread, summarization, those type of tools directly in our forms. So we have that option to enable it when our customers are ready for it.
Great, thank you. Also slightly technical on licensing. Is your license cost set at the start of the contract, or do you leverage fees to reflect the quantum of savings made or efficiencies gained? And is the main advantage of your 3-in-1 offering a lower cost for clients, or the ease and speed for them to interact with just one counterparty?
Yeah, so the cost is set at the start of the project in terms of cost per user. We don't currently leverage or work on a contingent basis on savings or benefits. That's a very interesting point. At this stage, it's about getting volume and getting the product into market, but that absolutely is something that could be explored. You have to remind me on the second part of the question, Tom.
The second part of the question was, is the main advantage of your 3-in-1 offering a lower cost for clients, or the ease and speed for them to interact with just one counterparty?
Yeah, so the 3 applications are priced as individual modules, but obviously you can buy them as an integrated suite, and there is a discount and a benefit. So if you were to compare the 3 applications versus 3 separate quotes from a competitor, we've done this recently, there's a slightly lower cost for that. We're not the cheapest in the market by far, but we're also not expensive. We've done a lot of work into the pricing. I think the main benefit is the integrity of data and efficiencies of data. Once you bring that data in through the validation tools that James mentioned, you're not taking the data out of the system again. If you're bringing together other third-party applications, you're taking that data in and out of different systems. You run the risk of corruption of data, inefficiency of data. I think the real benefit for me and if you think of the primes in the UK and across the world, it's all about digitalization, integration, efficiency of data, and this plays directly into that. One supplier, one tool set to achieve 5 or 6 different outcomes, rather than managing 5 or 6 suppliers, 5 different databases. So the real benefit at the moment is the integration and speed. But I love the question about the efficiencies gained. I think that's something to come in the next phase.
Great, thank you. We've got a number of questions on Siemens, so we're going to tackle them all at once. How important is the Siemens partnership, and will this accelerate growth?
I'll go first, and I'll let James take more credit because James has been a driving force behind this partnership. So the first thing I say about Siemens is the endorsement factor. For us, Auxilium's a new name, but it is a suite of products that are well known. For me, there's an intangible benefit that Siemens have chosen to integrate our product into their suite. For me, that justifies the investment made. I saw a question, investment. The Auxilium suite to date, we have spent 7 million at the end of this year bringing this product to market, including the acquisition in 2020 of R4I. So £7 million investment, with the product now generating an annual run rate of 2.3 million per annum on the software licenses alone and growing. I think Siemens is really exciting for us. If you look at their global footprint, you look at the way they sell, they're selling as an enterprise solution into big defense primes and big government organizations at a level that we'd really struggle to access. The initial engagement has been fantastic. They're building us into their product catalog. They're building us into their digital thread. They've worked a lot of work from James's technical team to satisfy their security and systems requirements, and they're about to go live. So we've got high hopes for the impact of Siemens on this business. But Siemens isn't the only one. We've obviously mentioned the other partnerships in other territories, and we are working on a number of other global integrators as well that we can work with who are interested in exploring the suite. James, anything you want to add on Siemens? Because you've lived and breathed it.
Yeah, I think the big thing is it's definitely something that didn't happen overnight. So it was months and months and months of work. They initially did a make or buy decision, and they decided to go with the buy decision for our software, which I thought was really a good feather in our cap. It really shows the value, the complexity, and of what our tools provide. So with Siemens integrating that into their digital thread, what we're going to see, I think, is a big surge in our U.S. customer base, especially at the start, which has been an area of challenge, I think, for us to really get into that market. We're having great success in the Europe market, in Canada, and in Australia, but that U.S. market, we're having minimal, I think. But Siemens is really going to get us in there. So.
Great, super. Well, in that question, you answered the one of the other questions, which has been about the costs of development. So we won't cover that again. But one other question, in fact, two questions I'll bring together. Have you got the funds or access to funds to keep investing enough in your solutions? And do the run rate costs now start to reduce?
You should never ask a CPO, Tom, if he's got enough money to do development. As you're going to get to the right notes. So, in terms of our core roadmap, we worked very hard to, with James and other stakeholders, CTO, etc., to work out what we can achieve with the resources we've got. Clearly, if we had more resources, we could accelerate development. But we're comfortable that we've got the resources we need to deliver the roadmap for this year. In terms of development costs, we do expect them to tail off a little bit, but we're going to continue to invest in the product because you can't sit still. But I think we spent 1.5 million last year. We're going to spend about 1.4 million this year, but I expect them to drop back to circa $1 million as we move forward into next year, maybe 0.8 million. But we will continue to spend circa $1 million on the product each year to maintain it and enhance it. I'm sure James will tell you, if you ask a question, that he could do with a lot more developers, a lot more money. So we won't let James speak on that one.
I'll go on mute.
Very wise. Okay, so I'm conscious of time. There are a number of outstanding questions, but I'm going to bring them together into two if I can. So one is about the broader geopolitical environment. And the question is, how is the geopolitical climate influencing the purchasing decisions of customers in different regions? Particularly, are you seeing any favoring of non-US suppliers?
That is a great question, Tom. So if you'd asked me 12 months ago, I'd have said no. But in the last 12 months in particular, we've seen European nations, European primes, tier 1, tier 2 organizations move away from the traditional US software capabilities to explore other options. So we've sold into Czech Republic, Holland, Austria, Germany, Poland, all in the last 6 months, and most of our bid activity currently is in Western Europe. These primes typically look to the US for their support solutions, and there's been a shift towards the UK. The other one I'd mention is Asia Pacific. So we're working hard to get traction in South Korea, Japan, India. Again, those markets now are really starting to express an interest in this tool set and this capability. Whereas, if you take the Japanese, they would typically take the solution direct from the US government. They've started to try and build their own capability. I think there's been a seismic shift in defense to say, you need a software capability, you need to be able to do this yourself. You can't rely on partners anymore. So that would be my view, James. I don't know what you're seeing. You're on the other side of the Atlantic.
Yeah, I think the big thing I'm seeing from customers is more of an urgency to get the software in. So before the conflict, there was a bit more of let's say fair attitude of getting this kind of software into the organization. But since that conflict, they've really expedited it. So there's a need for this software that they realize, and they're looking at how they can more rapidly go through their IT processes to get our software into their environments. So.
Yeah.
Great, super, thank you. Now I'm going to pose one last question, which brings together a few of the themes here. We've had one question which is asked on the relative opportunities between commercial aerospace and defence, and another question which is asked in a more broad sense. Where do you see the most significant future opportunities for the business? And Phil, I wonder if you could just wrap those together and give us a sense of where you see this going.
Yeah, let's look at the segment first. So whilst we've had some success in commercial aviation, commercial aerospace recently, for us the priority is defence. The defence world is more mature and ready to invest in this type of technology. That the threats are real. I think where we're seeing traction in the commercial aviation side, particularly on the publications aspect, but there's already a lot of mature systems around availability. You think about airlines, maximizing passenger numbers, optimizing availability is part and parcel of what they do. Defense isn't quite the same mindset. So for us, the biggest opportunities in the defense space in the medium term. In terms of opportunity, James said it himself. I mean, the US market is by far and away the biggest addressable market for us globally. We haven't had much success in the US. We've been very successful in Canada and Australia and more recently Western Europe. I see the Siemens relationship in particular and other partnerships we're working on, hopefully announced soon, will really accelerate the growth of this business, because that US defense market is where the opportunity is for Pennant. And the US defense market, without getting too technical again, is adopting or moving towards the same data standards that we support globally. So our tool set aligns with the direction of travel where the US wants to go.
Super, that's great. Well, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, James. Could I ask investors not to close this session, as you will now be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback. If anyone has further questions or would like additional information on Pennant, please do get in touch via pennant@walbrookpr.com. Thank you again for attending today's presentation.
Thank you, everyone.